Johnny, polar bears, are they going extinct or what? The polar bears, Johnny? Yeah, well, for years, Johnny, we were told that the bloody polar bears were going to bloody all drown or die or starve or whatever because the snow and the ice was all just melting and it was going to put them in all sorts of dire straits. But now I'm not too bloody sure about that, Johnny. Yes, of course. Well, you get conflicting sort of reports about what the hell's going on up there, and I sometimes think that we're just being shown a sensation. But Johnny, wasn't that Al Gore bloke, wasn't he waffling on 15 years ago about the inconvenient truth and how everything was going to become extinct? Has any of that happened?
The entire North Polar ice cap during some of the summer months could be completely ice-free within the next 5 to 7 years.
Realism. Alright, let's just keep this video quick. So, back early on in the global warming is going to destroy us all days, the poster child, or poster animal, or poster bear of the entire movement was the polar bear. We were being told that due to the loss of sea ice in the Arctic and the Antarctic, there's not enough, space for polar bears, there's not enough food, they're dying out.
Yeah, it seems they're not all just going to die or fry or whatever because there's less snow. There'll be some instances where things might get a bit different, but that doesn't mean they're all just going to die and become... Yes, of course. In fact, there's evidence out there, Johnny, that the polar bear population may be increasing.
He's not joking.
Well, can we trust what science is telling us, Johnny?
Is the polar bear population increasing? These mammals spend a lot of time on the ice, both living and hunting. The Arctic is warming about twice as fast as the rest of the world, according to research from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. This is causing ice to melt earlier and come back later in the year. However, a scientific study from Global Change Biology in 2020 said the thinner ice has actually created more algae growth, which then has brought more fish and seals for polar bears to eat and stay alive. There are currently somewhere from 22,000 to 31,000 polar bears in the world, according to the World Wildlife Fund. This is up from the organization's estimate of 20,000 to 25,000 10 years ago in 2011. So we can verify, yes, recent studies show polar bears' numbers have actually increased of late. Even so, experts say the quickly melting ice could have a long-term detrimental impact on the polar bear's livelihood.
Warm water means more bloody krill or whatever they call it. More animals coming in closer, and the polar bears don't have to wander off for fucking miles out into the ice to get something. It's more or less coming to them. Yes, of course.
Hello everyone, this is Will with PragerU. Today we're joined with Dr. Susan Crockford. How are you doing today?
Not too bad. Sunny day here.
In Canada, right?
Yeah.
And so we are contacting you today because we put out at PragerU a post recently that talked about polar bear populations. We posted on Facebook basically claiming that polar bear populations across the world are actually growing, or at least not shrinking at the rate that the left likes to talk about they're shrinking. And Facebook labeled this post as false information. And so we cited a lot of your studies, a lot of your sources in that post to make our claim. What is your response to Facebook claiming that it is false information?
Well, I mean, the video was pretty simple and straightforward. I thought it presented, it talked about the National Geographic starving polar bear issue very...
There was the National Geographic story that showed the dying polar bear.
Now, National Geographic, Johnny, which used to be a really respected organisation as far as I was concerned, it openly admitted that this particular footage of this poor starving bloody bear...
You know what, let's actually bring that up. so you can look at this bear. It's a dying polar bear. National Geographic actually had to apologize and say this wasn't due to climate change, so they had to walk that story back. But the damage was done. The polar bear...
Yeah, that they actually had to travel all over the fucking joint to try and find a bear that was actually starving. Jesus Christ! And when they did find this poor bastard of a bear, they sort of made out that this is what's generally happening to the bloody polar bear population up there as we speak, which was not true at all.
We have all heard the argument that the world is warming and the Arctic is melting. It may even be ice-free in summer in just a couple of years. But at the same time, reports indicate that the number of polar bears in the Arctic, which very heavily depend on the sea ice in order to hunt, is increasing. So which set of facts should we believe? The popular narrative of the world warming and the ice melting, or the narrative that the number of polar bears suggests that perhaps the ice is fine?
A recent viral video put out by the National Geographic Society showed an emaciated and dying polar bear struggling to find something to eat, and we were told that this is what climate change looks like. What went unreported in the coverage was the fact that the activist, photographer, and co-founder of radical environmentalist group Sea Legacy, Paul Nicklin, had spent weeks searching the Canadian Arctic in order to find a thin bear to use in his reporting of starving bears. Unfortunately for him and his mission, nearly all of the bears he found were quite healthy and fat.
We don't get told that, Johnny. We just get this bloody skewed view that look at these poor bastards up there, they're all bloody starving. They're all going to drown or fry or starve or whatever. Whatever's going to happen, it's not going to be good. Whereas that, Johnny, doesn't seem to be what's happening. Seems we just get fed whatever they want us to believe.
I was reading a blog post the other day about polar bears. Lovely creatures, aren't they? Although, up until recently, we've been really worried about them because, according to Al Gore in his Inconvenient Truth that came out in 2006, we were told that the polar bear population was desperately depleting and that they were starving up there in the Arctic. And they were stuck on ice that was melting, having to swim up to 60 miles to find food, and how we were saddened by that news. Well, I was reading in this blog that that's actually not true.
So, Johnny, are you saying that the global warming's not happening? Is that what you're saying? Now, this isn't a documentary, Johnny, about climate change and whether it's happening or not, because this is more about bloody truth in news and things not being used for propaganda purposes. So let me get this straight, Johnny. It's how things are reported that I just want to know what's bloody going on in a truthful manner. Oh, get out of here.
Population of polar bears has increased dramatically, not decreased as we were told because of climate change. There are actually more of them, so much so that the management of them is a bit of a problem, and they're even considering that they may need to reduce it. Now that's interesting because I'm not sure that you're supposed to cull an endangered species, but no doubt they'll make the arrangements. If there's too many of them, I suppose we'll just have to reduce the numbers somehow or other. But it does become a little bit inconvenient, does it not, for those people who are saying it's all down to climate change, that the polar bears are disappearing, pulling on our heartstrings and making us somewhat worried. Which made me think, I wonder how much more of the claims that the climate change people are telling us is actually true. Maybe those other items that they say about climate change are equally pulling on our emotional heartstrings.
It seems they can just make up any old shit and push that. Oh, National Geographic, they're not what they used to be. Yeah, I wonder what Al Gore's doing now.